Hi, everyone, I'm Dan Abrams, and this is Court Camp.
Call the buzzer, call the...
Take him back! Take him out!
You die in prison as well. We kick things off tonight at an arraignment in Quincy, Massachusetts, where both inside and outside of the courtroom, fists and F-bombs are flying. The four defendants are Nathan Lugo, Brian Moulton, Devontae Thames, and Allison Deschewitz. They're charged with murder and robbery in the shooting death of 21-year-old Kyle McManus. The suspects, aged 17 to 19, allegedly tried to rob McManus of his marijuana in front of his house. Witnesses told police that McManus had been talking to someone in a black Jeep and was shot, reportedly by Lugo, while hanging onto the door of the vehicle as it pulled away. He was left to die on the street. Two witnesses recognized Deschewitz and contacted police. Even though it was Lugo who allegedly pulled the trigger, since all four of the teens were in the car at the time of the shooting, they were all charged with murder. At the arraignment, the courtroom's packed with supporters from both sides, and tensions are high, as the four plead not guilty to the charges of murder. With the formalities out of the way, a family member yells, "I love you," to one of the defendants. That's when people on both sides begin shouting, and this powder keg explodes. Police and court deputies attempt to get the brawlers out of the room before things get out of hand. But that might not be so easy. Police drag one man outside by his arms and legs. Then slam him to the ground, while another's removed by a friend. As officers place a man in cuffs, he calls out to the camera, perhaps to use in his own defense. Inside the courtroom, emotions are still running high. That's 21-year-old Barbara Bell, a friend of the victims. She's taunting friends and family of the defendants. Things appear to be calming down, but then a female supporter of defendant Brian Moulton begins shouting. She, too, is told it's time to go. The rest of the crowd disperses, but outside, people are still fired up.
Free Brian! Free Brian!
And remember Barbara Bell, the supporter of the victim who was taunting people inside? She's now on the street and refuses to leave quietly.
Remember my face, bitches. Remember this face. Remember my face. Remember my face.
Then she snaps. It's unclear who she's charging at, but Bell is immediately detained. After it was all over, 5 people are arrested, including Bell and 4 male suspects. They were charged with disorderly conduct and disrupting court proceedings, both misdemeanors. Bell was released on her own reconnaissance, and the other 4 are held on bail of between $2,000 and $5,000. None served any time. As for the murder case, the shooter Nathan Lugo was found guilty of second-degree murder and armed robbery and sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 15 years. Deschewitz pleaded guilty to manslaughter and other charges and was sentenced to 12 years in prison. Moulton and Thames both pled guilty to armed robbery and accessory to murder and were sentenced to 10 years in a Massachusetts state prison.
Steve Penrose ever sent you nude photographs?
He has.
Next, we go to Newport, Kentucky, for a misconduct hearing against County Judge Dawn Gentry. She's been accused by the Judicial Conduct Commission of a dozen violations, including drinking alcohol in court offices, asking employees to help with her campaign during work hours, and having an inappropriate sexual relationship. Gentry, who's been a judge for 4 years, allegedly hired her former pastor, Stephen Penrose, as a case specialist because the couple were having an affair. At the hearing, Gentry appears before a judicial panel who will ultimately decide if she'll be removed from office. Several of her colleagues testify about Gentry's inappropriate behavior, which includes evidence of where she and Penrose were supposedly working. When Gentry's asked about her relationship with Penrose, she insists it was not sexual.
You're denying you had any sexual relationship with Mr. Penrose.
Yes, sir.
But you do admit to a close personal relationship.
Yes, sir.
Based on the photographs he sent her, the relationship could be described as very personal.
Has Steve Penrose ever sent you nude photographs?
He has.
And were these photographs that you kept and saved in a hidden photo album on your phone?
I did.
When Gentry's asked to identify specific photos, the testimony heads into not safe for work territory.
And on the third line, there's a t-shirt, correct?
Yes, sir.
And it looks to me like it's kind of mimicking the Mountain Dew soda drinks logo. What does that shirt say?
Mountain Dew.
Mountain Dew. Like D-O.
It does.
And then 3 pictures of male penis, correct?
That's correct.
And Mr. Penrose sent you those pictures of the penis.
Yes, sir.
While continuing to deny any sexual shenanigans, Gentry concedes she made a number of bad decisions.
Will you agree with me, though, that there were beer cans and liquor bottles found in your chambers?
Yes, sir.
And you admit that having your staff do your campaign work during the workday violates the Code of Judicial Conduct?
It absolutely violates the Code of Judicial Conduct.
The commission agreed and found Judge Gentry committed 10 of the 12 ethics violations, including inappropriate sexual behavior. She was removed from office. Gentry appealed, but the Kentucky Supreme Court agreed with the panel and upheld the decision to remove the judge. Next, we take you inside the Summit County Domestic Court in Akron, Ohio. The woman seated, whose identity is not being disclosed, is filing a protection order against her boyfriend, Rashad Green. The third person we see is Green's grandmother. Who we don't see is a judge or any other member of the court. Magistrate Tracy Stoner just stepped out of the room to review warrants on the defendant. But before leaving, the woman says she told the judge she needs this protection order because she fears for her life. After a few minutes, the conversation between Green and his ex becomes tense. As you can see, he is clearly upset. Notice as he bangs the table. Green becomes more agitated. He erupts. The grandmother tries to intercede, but is thrown to the wall. Enraged, Green catches up to his ex and begins assaulting her. Thankfully, the judge and a bailiff are nearby and immediately enter the room. The grandmother tries to intervene again as the officer points his taser. The electric shock finally subdues Green. The incident leaves Judge Stoner in disbelief. The victim walks away unassisted. The bailiff, meanwhile, has his taser locked in on Green in case he makes a move. Another officer arrives and places Green in cuffs. The woman's treated at a local hospital and released without any serious injuries. She receives her protection order, but later sues the court for negligence. But the case was dismissed on the grounds that the judge, quote, did not create or increase the risk to the plaintiff. A spokesperson for the court said they would re-examine security policies. acknowledged the need for more funding for additional security. As for Green, he's charged with domestic violence and barred from having any contact with his ex-girlfriend. He served 27 days in jail and received 2 years probation. If you or a loved one are victims of domestic violence, please call 1-800-799-SAFE. Next, we're at the Cheshire County Courthouse in Keene, New Hampshire. Court is currently in recess, but there is trouble brewing in the gallery.
Your choice is take the hat off or step outside.
The judge asked this man, Bo Davis, to remove his hat or leave. Otherwise, he could be charged with contempt of court. But Davis refuses.
So I have force threatened upon me if I were not to wear a hat.
Davis and some others seated around him are associated with the New Hampshire-based anti-government movement. They're here to support a fellow member who's the defendant in a, quote, right-to-travel case that's in recess. These so-called sovereign citizens claim to be pushing back against what they consider overreach in the criminal justice system, and they're not afraid to get vocal about it.
I think you misunderstood. It's the judge's authority when he comes back. If at that point he says he's in contempt, then you have the authority.
There's not an issue. Your choice is take the hat off. I'm trying to be as nice as I can. You're making threats.
After more back and forth with Davis and relentless commentary from others in the gallery,
It's not you guys, huh?
the bailiff is finally done discussing the matter.
Stand up, please. Sir, treat others as you would wish to one place. Being nice. Or I'm not going to
A second bailiff comes to help escort Davis out, but again he refuses to stand.
I'm not going to assist my own arrest. I wasn't going to assist him. Please do not hurt me.
Instead of dragging Davis out of the courtroom, the bailiffs use a wheelchair.
Just leave people alone now.
As Davis is wheeled out, the group continues to insult the bailiffs.
They were considered like real jobs, one where you don't use violence against people.
Despite their protests, the court has authority to make rules about conduct in the courtroom. So a short time later, the judge returned to the courtroom and sentenced Bo Davis to 5 days in jail for contempt of court.
I didn't know you were going to take my picture. I got a haircut.
Good one. I'm glad you can make jokes.
They say I am evil and a monster. They're right.
Next, we're in Cincinnati, Ohio, for the arraignment of alleged serial killer Anthony Kirkland. The 40-year-old previously served 16 years in prison for one murder and is now charged with multiple other violent crimes, including 3 murders by strangulation he's believed to have committed after his release. In each case, he also allegedly burned the body of the victim in an attempt to conceal evidence of rape.
Mr. Kirkland, you are charged with the following offenses as contained in the indictment. Count 1, attempted rape with specifications. Count 2, aggravated murder with specifications. Count 3, aggravated robbery with specifications. Count 4, aggravated murder. Everybody stay seated, please.
The judge has only read a few of the numerous violent charges against Kirkland when he appears to faint.
4, aggravated murder. Everybody stay seated, please.
After he's helped back to his feet, the judge finishes reading all 12 counts related to the murders of a woman, 2 teenage girls in the Cincinnati area.
Mr. Kirkland, this is a death penalty case. What's the defendant's plea?
Not guilty, Your Honor.
But before Kirkland's trial begins, he's charged with another murder. This time a 25-year-old woman.
Anthony Kirkland is, in fact, a vicious serial killer.
During the trial, Kirkland does not take the stand, but his own words are still used against him when the prosecution plays portions of his recorded police interview describing the attacks.
How did you hurt her? Did you knock her out?
With Kirkland's own admission of guilt facing the death penalty, Kirkland finally takes the stand during the sentencing phase of the trial.
I cannot believe how horrible I am. They say I am evil and a monster. They're right. Ever since I was little, everyone said I was bad. Even my mom hated me, but please spare my life.
Kirkland's fate is now in the hands of the jury.
We, the jury, being duly impaneled and sworn, unanimously recommend that the sentence of death should be imposed upon Anthony Kirkland.
The trial of serial killer Anthony Kirkland appears to be over. But 6 years later, the Ohio Supreme Court would overturn his death sentence due to prejudicial remarks made by the prosecution during his sentencing. Kirkland was granted a resentencing trial, where he once again pleads for mercy.
I do not deserve to live, but please spare my life.
And once again, his life is left in the jury's hands.
We, the jury, unanimously find that the sentence of death should be imposed upon Anthony Kirkland.
The judge would uphold the recommended sentence. Anthony Kirkland currently sits on Ohio's death row for the 4 murders he committed. Next up, we head to a traffic court proceeding in Sacramento, California. The court clerk is waiting on the defendant, Scott Green, who's appearing today for speeding and license tag violations. There he is.
Hello?
Hello, Mr. Green?
Yes.
Yes, defendant Green is also Dr. Scott Green, a plastic surgeon.
Hi. Are you available for trial? It kind of looks like you're in an operating room right now.
I am, sir. I'm in an operating room. Yes, I'm available for trial. Go right ahead.
Okay, let me just briefly advise you that the proceedings right now, they are being live streamed on YouTube. That's because trials are required by law to be open to the public. Since we're limiting physical access to the courtroom right now, that's how we're making them open to the public, okay?
Okay.
Streaming or not, Dr. Green is ready to go. The good doctor is sworn in and continues to multitask as he waits for Court Commissioner Gary Link to get things started.
So, can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Officer Monroe, Mr. Green. So, unless I'm mistaken, I'm seeing a defendant that's in the middle of an operating room. Is that correct, Mr. Green?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Link seems a bit concerned about Dr. Green's setting and his ability to continue the hearing while performing a facelift on a patient.
I do not feel comfortable for the welfare of a patient if you're in the process of operating that I would put on a trial, notwithstanding the fact that the officer's here today.
I have another surgeon right here who's doing the surgery with me, so I can stand here and allow them to do the surgery also.
Not at all. I don't think so. I don't think that's appropriate. I think I'm going to come up with a different date when you're not actively involved or participating in attending to the needs of a patient.
Looks like Dr. Green's plan isn't going over so well with the court.
I apologize, Your Honor, to the court. Sometimes surgery doesn't always go as
the court
as
you know,
it
happens. We want to keep people healthy. We want to keep them alive. That's important. Thank you. Okay, you're both free to go now.
Although the Zoom received plenty of attention from the media, the original court business was resolved. Dr. Green paid his fines just a few days later. That's it for this edition of Court Cam. I'm Dan Abrams. Thanks for watching.